So picture this for a second. 7 million rounds of ammunition. Gone. Not misplaced, not delayed in shipping, but outright stolen in one of the smoothest, most well-planned heists we've seen in years. We're not talking about a handful of boxes out of somebody's garage. We're talking 2 full trucks, loaded down with enough firepower to supply a small army, just vanishing on the road. Here's the kicker. They weren't rolling through some quiet back road. These trucks were headed out of a major ammo plant in Mexico, bound for Texas, carrying 5.56 NATO, 40 caliber, 22 LR, and a few other loads. Before they ever made the border, they were stopped, emptied, and left cold. No gunfight, no shots fired, just gone. Now, ask yourself this. If 7 million rounds disappeared on a U.S. highway, what would happen? You'd see press conferences, FBI task forces, national headlines. But because it happened in Mexico, barely anyone's talking about it. And that's why we're digging in today. Not just because the heist itself was wild, but because of the hypocrisy behind it. Mexico has been suing American gun companies, blaming us for their cartel violence, while their own ammo industry is bleeding millions of rounds straight into criminal hands. That's what we're breaking down. Where did the ammo go? Who's really behind this? And why isn't anyone making noise about it? All right, let's break down what actually went down here. The stolen shipment came straight out of Aguila Ammunition, one of Mexico's biggest ammo manufacturers. 2 trucks rolled out, fully loaded with product headed for Texas. Somewhere along that route, a group of armed men intercepted them. Now, here's the part that ought to make you raise an eyebrow. Not a single shot was fired. No firefight, no standoff, nothing. The thieves knew exactly what they were after. They pulled those trucks over, stripped every box of ammo clean, and then vanished like smoke. A few days later, authorities found both rigs abandoned, completely empty. Let's talk about what was inside. The bulk of it was 5.56 NATO, bread and butter for militaries and civilian AR shooters alike. On top of that, you had 40 caliber, the round a lot of law enforcement agencies still carry, and a whole lot of 22 LR, plus a mix of other calibers tossed in. All of it. Gone. 7 million rounds erased in one sweep. And here's the thing. Mexico's highways see trucks every day. But these guys didn't hit random. They hit the right ones, at the right time, with surgical precision. That doesn't happen by accident. This wasn't some opportunistic highway stick-up. This was planned, coordinated, and almost certainly an inside job. Because somebody had to know. Somebody knew which trucks carried ammo, when they left the plant, and exactly how to take them without raising alarms. That's not luck. That's logistics. Now, let's be real. There's no way a crew of random highway bandits just stumbled onto 2 trucks carrying millions of rounds and pulled off a flawless heist. That doesn't happen. This had the fingerprints of an inside job all over it. Think about it. They didn't stop a food truck. They didn't grab electronics. They didn't touch anything else on the road. They knew exactly what they were looking for. That means somebody on the inside, whether it was a factory employee, a logistics coordinator, or even corrupt officials, fed them the intel, the timing, the route, the cargo. None of that's guesswork. And here's the scary part. If this ammo doesn't end up in the U.S. market legally, where do you think it goes? Straight into cartel hands. 7 million rounds is enough to arm entire battalions, and the cartels aren't exactly short on rifles that'll eat up 5.56 or 40 caliber. Guns don't work without bullets, and now they've got a mountain of them. That's the part nobody's talking about. Mexico points the finger at American gun companies for fueling cartel firepower, but their own ammo industry just fed those same cartels a supply that'll last years. That's not just hypocrisy. That's negligence at the highest level. Here's what really gets under my skin. Mexico's government has spent years pointing the finger north, suing American gun companies, screaming that U.S. firearms are fueling cartel violence. They even filed billion-dollar lawsuits against Smith & Wesson and others, claiming our manufacturers are to blame for the blood on their streets. But let's get something straight. Guns don't fire themselves. Without ammo, an AR or a Glock is just an expensive paperweight. And right now, Mexico's own industry is bleeding millions of rounds straight into cartel hands. You can't have it both ways. You can't blame the U.S. for sending guns south while your own factories are losing shipments big enough to supply a war zone. If 7 million rounds went missing in the States, it'd be front-page news, FBI raids, federal task forces, you name it. Down there, it's just another headline for a week, then silence. That's not accountability. That's a double standard. If you want to clean up cartel firepower, you've got to start by cleaning up your own supply chain. Otherwise, pointing fingers at American companies is nothing but political theater. Now, let's talk about the factory itself. Aguila Ammunition. This isn't some mom-and-pop reload shop. Aguila is one of the biggest ammo producers in Mexico, exporting millions of rounds every single year. So how does a company that size just lose 7 million rounds without a fight? No armed escort on the trucks, no GPS tracking, no resistance at all. That's not just bad luck. That's a setup. Somebody on the inside either got bribed, got pressured, or flat out handed those trucks over. Think about it from a cartel's perspective. You could try smuggling ammo across the border from the U.S., sure, but that means checkpoints, ATF seizures, all kinds of risk. Or you make one phone call, have a guy inside a major ammo factory tip you off, and suddenly you've got 2 trucks worth of bullets without firing a single shot. Cleaner, faster, and way harder to trace. That's exactly what this looks like. The thieves weren't guessing. They knew the route, they knew the timing, and they knew exactly what cargo was inside. That kind of precision doesn't come from luck. It comes from someone feeding them the playbook. And let's be honest, if 7 million rounds can just disappear like that, you've got more than a theft problem. You've got a corruption problem. Here's the thing, Mexico loves to talk about how American guns make their way south into cartel hands. And sure, that happens. But nobody wants to talk about the reverse. Ammunition from Mexico is flowing north. That's right, their ammo is being smuggled into the U.S., the same way they claim our guns are smuggled down. It cuts both ways. You can't claim victimhood while your own supply chains are leaking like a sieve. Guns don't shoot without bullets. And those cartels don't stay armed without a steady stream of ammo. And now, 7 million rounds just fell off the map? You tell me where that's going. And here's why it matters for us here in the States. Every time something like this happens, anti-gun politicians use it as ammo, pun intended, to push for more restrictions on our rights. Doesn't matter that this heist was south of the border. Doesn't matter that it was Mexico's factory, Mexico's security failure. The talking points end up in Washington, and suddenly they're telling law-abiding Americans we need tighter ammo controls. So let's be crystal clear. This isn't just Mexico's problem. When their industry fails, it gets spun into an excuse to chip away at the Second Amendment up here. That's the bigger picture nobody's talking about. Let's step back for a second. This heist isn't just a crazy one-off headline. It's a symptom of a bigger, ongoing problem. Aguila didn't just wake up one day and, oops, 7 million rounds are gone. This is part of a pattern. Mexico's factories have been hit before. Shipments vanish, stockpiles get raided, and nobody seems to have answers. Meanwhile, the same government points north and says we're the problem. They sue Smith & Wesson. They drag American manufacturers through the mud, all while ignoring the fact that their own supply chains are wide open for cartels to exploit. And let's not kid ourselves. Cartels aren't slowing down. They're building arsenals. And every time another shipment goes missing, they're the ones getting stronger. Guns without ammo are just metal. Ammo is what fuels the fight. So when Mexico refuses to secure its own industry, the violence doesn't just stay south of the border. It spills over. And then it gets used as another excuse to hammer law-abiding American gun owners with more rules, more restrictions, more red tape. That's why this story matters. It's not just about 7 million rounds disappearing, it's about what happens next and who ends up paying the price. So here's where we land. 7 million rounds didn't just vanish, they were taken. Clean, quiet, and almost certainly with help from the inside. That ammo was supposed to be heading north into the US, but now it's floating out there with no accountability. You don't need a crystal ball to know most of it's fueling the same cartels Mexico claims to be fighting. And here's the ugly truth. Every time something like this happens, it ends up being our problem. Anti-gun politicians in Washington don't care that this was Mexico's factory, Mexico's security failure, Mexico's corruption. They'll spin it into another excuse for more restrictions, more hoops for law-abiding gun owners. We're the ones who pay the price for a crime that never even touched American soil. Meanwhile, Mexico points the finger at U.S. gun companies, playing the victim, while their own ammo industry is bleeding supply straight into cartel hands. You can't sue Smith & Wesson on Monday and then lose 7 million rounds on Tuesday and pretend the two aren't connected. At some point, you've got to clean your own house. That's why stories like this matter. It's not just about Mexico. It's not just about cartels. It's about protecting our rights here at home. Because if we don't stay sharp, every failure south of the border becomes another excuse to tighten the leash on American gun owners. So what do you think? Was this an inside job? Was that ammo always destined for cartel stockpiles? And most importantly, why isn't anybody talking about it? Drop your thoughts down below. Make sure you like, subscribe, and drop a comment down below. Stay sharp.